Sales are easy. It's making the call that's hard. Hi, my name is Dave Gallegos. I've spent the last 25 years in the mortgage industry and a lifetime in sales. In this show, I'll bring that experience, expertise, and the experts I've met to you with actionable advice to improve your sales. It's not magic. You just make the call. Hi, everyone. I'm Dave Gallegos from Zenith Home Loans. This is Make the Call. This is the podcast that's designed for loan officers and loan officers primarily, but definitely real estate agents, anybody in sales that's in a B2C sales environment, working with consumers, or B2B, working with other referral partners to get business. So that's what we're talking about. My focus, this is, like I said, episode 31. Our last episode was on the subject of doing less to do more. I've been going through the Darren Hardy Insane Productivity Program. I advise you to check it out. I'm not getting a royalty for this. Keep expecting Darren to reach out because I'm using his stuff, but I'm not using it. I'm not sharing it. I'm not sharing anything specific. I'm sharing my experience of it. We're on module 5, and we talked about last week, the subject was doing less to do more. And this is more of that, right? So we're going to talk a little bit more about what you do so that you can become more productive. The subject is doing less to be able to do more. Now that sounds a little contradictory, obviously, but that's the point of the subject matter is too much. We get involved in too many things. We're doing too many things. We're too busy and we're not being productive. And that's the point of all of this. When I think about one of the most attractive things about being a loan officer or a real estate agent is that your time is your own, right? Like you have complete control over your schedule, which gives you a lot of freedom. And that can be a dangerous thing because I've seen real estate agents and loan officers roll into work around 10:30 or 11 o'clock in the morning. And like that's when they're starting their workday. They're typically not that productive. They might be doing fine and they might be taking great care of themselves. But we got into this business. The reason I believe that most people got into sales was to have no lid on your earnings, right? Being able to earn as much money as possible based on how much you were willing to produce and how much you could produce. That's what makes sales such an attractive profession. And so that freedom of schedule is one of the things that attracts people to it. And that's one of the best things about the business. It's also one of the most damaging or negative things about the business, because if you can't manage your time and you can't manage your schedule, you're going to work. And this happens, and I'll raise my hand. I'm sure that if I asked you, if I could speak to you directly, you'd agree with me that there's some days where you come to work and you work a whole day, or this has happened to you, and you didn't get anything accomplished, right? You were busy all day, but you didn't do any really productive work. When I first got in the mortgage industry back in 2000, well, I got in the mortgage industry in 1997. My first professional training, mortgage-specific training event that I went to was something called the Todd Duncan Loan Officer Productivity School. This was back in 2001. It was here in Denver at the Hyatt Regency. I'll never forget it. I still think it's one of the best trainings I ever attended. So big shout out to Todd. That's been revamped now. I believe it's called something else. It's called High Trust Selling Academy, I believe. Todd was a great Todd's still one of the best mortgage teachers on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. And attending that thing was like drinking water from a fire hose. It was intense amounts of information, great stuff, like everything that I'd been looking for, because I was starving for how to build systems in my business so that I could be more productive. And towards the end of the week, the training focused on time blocking our calendars to do all the work that we had just been trained to do. And this was the first time in my professional life, and I was 37. Well, I was 40 at the time. I guess, 2001. So I was 40. Now you know how old I am. That was the first time in my professional career, and I've been, working in the professional world for a long time. It's the first time in my professional career that I ever sat down and got really intentional about time blocking my day. So the idea was to get a spreadsheet together and put on that spreadsheet, Sunday from 6 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night, Monday, same thing, Tuesday, Wednesday, all through the week, Sunday through Saturday. The idea was to block time in your calendar for the things that were most important to you and most important in your business. That's what we've been talking about with insane productivity. It's like, how do you leverage time How do you leverage time to do the most productive things that you want to get done? My first time block calendar was just completely packed with something to do all day long, every day of the week, and sometimes on the weekend. It was crazy. But I remember believing that this is what I have to do. And I had packed that thing. Now, I'm still a big fan of you have to block time in your calendar. You have to be intentional about what it is that you're going to be doing. But what you can't do is you can't block all that time in your calendar and then not honor it and not do the things that you said to do. And you can't have so much time packed into that calendar that everything is back to back, that there's no white space. You don't have any time to come up for air to do things that are really specific that you want to do. Well, I had everything in there. I wanted everything in my personal life. I wanted to call out time for morning reading, for working out, for date nights with my wife. I learned really quickly in a very short period of time, within a few days, maybe even that first or second week, where it's like, there's no way I can keep up with all of this activity. And so now I got the lesson wrong. I want to be clear about this, that when Todd taught it, he didn't teach it wrong. It's just, I got the message wrong. And so the more I worked on this, the more I realized that I was trying to pack, just that perfect example of doing less to do more. I was trying to pack too much in that calendar, too many things that were going to prevent me from spending time on doing the things that I really needed to do to grow my business, was making sure. And the number one most important thing that should be in your calendar, if you're a salesperson, without a doubt, is specific time blocked every single day for prospecting for new business. That doesn't count prospecting past customers. It means new business opportunities. And if you're a loan officer in this business and you're not seeing all the new opportunities that you'd like, then you know that you've got to spend time specifically to go after new streams of business opportunities, right? New relationships with new business professionals that can refer clients to you. Other real estate agents, financial advisors, attorneys, CPAs. There's a lot of places that you can get business from, but you've got to be intentional about it. So that was the first thing I learned, is that I had to create white space in my calendar. But the other lesson that I learned, and this was really an important part of this, but the other lesson that I learned is that if I didn't honor what was in that calendar, and I didn't say, if I'm going to prospect for new business from 9 to 11 every day, 2 hours every day, I'm going to be prospecting. It's phone block time. It's power hour time. Like, I'm going to make phone calls to new business partners that I want to reach. Like, every day, if I didn't block that time, at the exclusion of everything else, this is the key, at the exclusion of everything else, then it wasn't going to get done. And so what does that mean, at the exclusion of everything else? That means, and I didn't bring my cell phone in here, but that means no cell phone. You got to put your cell phone away. That has to go somewhere else while you're in your power hour of prospecting. And it means no emailing. It means no updating things. It means not watching social media. It means you have a list ready to go. You got to prepare for prospecting time. So if you know that you want to making a bunch of calls, there's got to be time in prep. You got to prep for that, right? So that you can be the most productive. But when you're on the phone, it's phone dialing time. And that's all you're doing, is on the phone, making those phone calls at the exclusion of everything else. And now that sounds like, I want you to try to visualize something when you do this. What I want you to visualize is, imagine, because this is when it hit home for me. Imagine having a doctor's appointment, and the doctor's appointment's at 9 o'clock in the morning. You always get there early, right? Because you don't want to be late for the doctor's appointment. Sometimes doctors will just cancel the appointment on you. Like, if you show up 10 minutes late, they're just going to be like, dude, you missed your appointment. You're going to have to come back another time. We have to reschedule because the doctor's on to the next appointment. He's not sitting around, right? And so you show up early for that appointment. You don't read your email while you're in an appointment with a doctor. You don't check your phone. You don't call other people. You're not in social media. You're at a doctor's appointment. You are focused on what the doctor's doing. If you're getting a physical, that's all you do, right? That's the analogy that you need to apply to your prospecting activity. Like, this is what I'm doing and I'm not doing anything else. Apply the same principle if you're meeting face-to-face or on a Zoom call, ideally face-to-face, on a Zoom call with a customer that you're doing a loan for. Like if you're, or you're on a real estate transaction, like you're not checking your phone and checking your email while you're having that conversation. You're focused on what you're doing with that. You need to apply that same principle, that same philosophy to the time you spend for the things that you're wanting to stay focused on. So what I learned when I first started doing this was I had to strip out all the other, I needed to create white space, right? So that when I went from one task to the next, there was a break in there so that I could finish up, do whatever cleanup paperwork or whatever notes I had to take, whatever I had to do before I went on to the next task. I always made sure that this was something else that was really productive. And I need to go back to this right now. So I'm remembering that I need to create a time in my calendar where I'm actually going to check my email. But I'm not going to live in that email. I'm going to spend time like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I can't do two things at once. You can't multitask. We've already established that on previous episodes, right? So I'm only going to be doing one thing at a time. In this module, what Darren teaches is something that he calls his no system. And there's two worksheets. The first one is building a no system. This is where you figure out, once you figure out what the vital tasks are that you need to have in your business, the vital task that you're working on, then you need to create a list of all the things that you need to say no to. And this is a really powerful process. You don't need his form to do this. Just say, okay, so if these are the three things that you're going to focus on, then what are all the other things I'm going to say no to while I'm doing that, right? So no cell phone, no email, no interruptions. So there's a jam session sign on your office door so that no one can bother you. If you're working from home, your family knows that don't interrupt when the sign's on the door. What else are you going to say no to so that you can do your yes, you do the thing that's most important to you? That's the first thing. The second worksheet is what he calls the Sunday planning system. Now, this planning system requires you to identify your three most significant goals. So there's only 3 goals in your life, right? So, and he advises, this is the simplicity of this. You don't need 20 goals. In fact, if you have 20 goals, you don't have any, he would argue. So 3 goals, maybe a business goal, maybe it's a financial goal or a health goal, and maybe it's a relationship goal or a spiritual goal, right? But if your business goal is, this is what I'm going to do, then you figure out all the things that you have to do on that Sunday planning system. Here's all the things that I have to do this week in support of that goal. When it's your health goal, like here's all the things I'm going to do this week in support of that goal. If it's a relationship goal, here's all the things I'm going to do this week to support my wife or to support my husband. You identify the tasks that has to be executed to achieve them. And in there's a miscellaneous box. This is the power in the system. That's a miscellaneous box. If you can go online. I think you can just Google this and go to find Darren Hardy's Sunday planning system. I think you can watch a video presentation that he gives on this. Super powerful. I would advise you to listen to that. So it's very good. And it talks about that fourth box. It's the miscellaneous box, something that he calls the devil's vortex. I'm not going to get into why he calls it that. You need to watch the video to get it there. But the miscellaneous box is where everything else goes that you think you have to do that week. Because if you're not focused on those 3 goals, that's not going to get done. And you've already decided that those are your 3 most important goals, right? So when it comes to your business, it would be prospecting for new business. It would be face-to-face with new referral partners. It would be face-to-face with borrowers and what, like an event that you're holding, how many voice-to-voice conversations are you going to have? How many face-to-face break bread meetings are you going to have, coffees or meals? It's all of those things. That's what's in your Sunday planning system for your business goal in support of it. And everything else that doesn't support that business goal goes in the miscellaneous box. And that's to be ignored, right? You're not supposed to touch that stuff. Most people spend all their time, and especially in mortgage and real estate where you have so much freedom, most people spend all of their time majoring in minor things, right? And so I have a great analogy for this. So when I first got my first job sacking groceries, my first job, official 16-year-old. When I was 14, I was a busboy for a while. But when I was 16, I got my first job sacking groceries at King Soopers back in the 70s. It was really hard to get a job. Fortunately, at King Soopers, it was like a really coveted job. And fortunately, my father worked there and I was able to get on. And so I started sacking groceries at King Soopers. I met my wife there, so it's really fond memories, but hated working in retail. But here's the thing about retail that's a little different than what we do in this space is that when you were a checker at King Soopers or a sacker or something, you were on the clock at a certain time. So if your shift started at 9 a.m., You couldn't wander in at 9:05 or you'd get written up. You got to be at work on time, right? And you have to be work early. You can't show up at 9. You have to be ready to go into the check stand at 9 o'clock, right? So you need to be a little early. You need to go to the booth. They need to give you your cash till. You need to walk the cash till over to see where you looked on the daily schedule to see which check stand you're supposed to be on. I'm starting to remember all this, giving me flashbacks. And then you go and you walked over, you signed into that check stand. This is like the electronic registers. You signed into that check stand and you put your drawer in and you turned your lane light on. And now people could you could start checking groceries out for people. You had to sit there and do that for the next 2 hours. You couldn't go do something else. You couldn't take a break. You couldn't go to the bathroom. You couldn't call your friends. You can kind of do that now. I see the checkers in the grocery stores with their phones out all the time, which is bizarre to me, but you couldn't do those things. You had to stay focused for 2 hours. At the end of 2 hours, you could take a 15-minute break. Somebody would come and relieve you, and it wouldn't be right at the 2-hour mark usually. It's like whenever the nurse person could show up to relieve you and get you off your register. So you took your register, you took your cash till out of the drawer. They put their cash till in the drawer. You signed out. You went over to the little checker stand, and you would put your cash drawer in there. They'd lock it up. You could go take your break. 15 minutes later, you got to be back at the end of that 15 minutes, and you got to get back to work. And you had to do that every day. Now, if we treated our professions as mortgage professionals and real estate professionals, financial advising professionals, if we treated our job like that, how much more productive would we be? If at 9 o'clock, I got to be on the phone at 9 or I'm going to get written up, what would that be like? That's a completely different way to look at the business. And if you take that approach and become that disciplined in your approach, it will require self-discipline. I mean, that's the question. The question is, at what level do you want to operate in this business? Because you can operate at the highest levels if you decide you want to be that disciplined. But just think about that. Think about the difference. And I'm a checker at a grocery store making $12 an hour. And this was in the 70s. So it was decent. It was a good job. What is that? $25,000 a year, making $25,000 a year as a checker in a grocery store. It was a good job. It was a good job in 1977. I mean, you weren't rich, but you could buy gas and make your car payment. Most of us had nice cars. We financed them. Anyway, think about the difference. Think about so somebody's telling you when to show up, what you have to do, when you have to do it. And if you don't show up, you're going to get written up. And if you keep not showing up, we're just going to let you go. Compare that to professionals in our industries and ask yourself, are you that disciplined about this? When there's an unlimited 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure income opportunities are available in this space, 6 figures is has to happen, right? Think about that we operate in a business with that kind of earning potential, and we lack the discipline that a $12 an hour, I don't know what they make now, $25 an hour probably, an hour person has in a job like that. And think about what you're missing out on. Think about what you're giving up. It's a crazy thought, isn't it? When you put that level of accountability on it, it changes everything. And you start to realize, I'm really bad at managing my time. And so what if you had to do that for 2 hours and you couldn't do anything else? What a difference that would make in our businesses. The people who are achieving at the highest levels in their business, this is how they do it. They manage their time, and it's how they get to the end of the year and they execute on their goals. And the people who don't, just look at your calendar. Because if I looked at your calendar, I don't need to know how you're doing in your business. I can look at your calendar and I'll have a really good idea of how you're doing in your business just based on what's going on in your calendar. And again, the big question is, do you honor that calendar? If you don't honor it, if you put something in your calendar and then that's a negotiable. If your calendar is negotiable, then everything is negotiable. And if everything's negotiable, then it's going to be a tough business for you to be in, because you can't have that level of accountability for yourself and achieve the results that we're talking about here. What I would advise you to do is look at your calendar for the last couple of weeks and then begin to identify those things in your calendar that you could have said no to, that you should have said no to. And then look at your idea list, your project list, your appointment list, and think about all the time you spend mindlessly scrolling through social media, reading random news articles that don't do anything about your business. The fact is, all the tasks do not deserve equal attention that you have. And that's what that no list is for. What am I going to stop doing so that I can focus on the things that I am going to do that's going to help me in my business the most? when we get to the end of our careers, we're going to look back on the career that we had. We're going to think back of like, how many people could I have helped? What kind of an opportunity, what kind of an impact, what kind of a difference could I have made if I had just decided that I was going to be just a little more focused on what I'm going to do. So the message today is start with that no list. All right. Build your no list. What's on that no list? What are the things I'm going to start saying no to so that I can say yes to the things that really matter? Right. Let's apply this to your health, right? Like, so let's say your health goal is to weigh a certain amount, achieve a certain level of body fat. And that's the outcome of the goal. Like the goal isn't my goal. When you say I have a goal of working out 5 days a week, that's not, I mean, that can be a goal, of course, but it's not, there's no result to that, right? It's like, well, I did it. So that's not really a goal. Why are you working out 5 days a week? What's the point of the working out? That should be the goal, the reason that you want to work out 5 days a week. So it's a body fat goal. It's a weight goal. It's a waist measurement goal. It's something like that, right? And so when you have that, when you put that in place and you make a list of all the things that you're going to do to achieve that goal, your no list should be, okay, and I'm not going to sleep in. I'm not going to hit the snooze on my alarm. I'm going to get up in the morning. I'm going to work out. I'm not going to eat donuts. I'm not going to eat Cheetos. I'm going to make a healthy meal for lunch. I'm going to have a healthy breakfast. I'm going to prep it the night before. I'm not going to go to bed without so what's on your no list? And I'm not going to eat fast food for lunch anymore. That's what the no list is for, right? So what are you not going to do so that you can achieve your goal? What are you not going to do? That's what the no list is for. So just remember that. So work on the Sunday planning system. You have 3 goals. What are your 3 big goals for the year? And what is everything that you're going to do this week to achieve those goals? Everything else goes in the miscellaneous list or the devil's vortex. That's where people spend their time that don't achieve their goals. And then that's it. Next week, we're going to go on to another module, and we're going to start talking about how you're going to start to narrow down your focus. It's going to get really interesting. I think you're going to really enjoy that part. That's it for this week. This is episode 31 of Make the Call. Please, if you like this, if you're finding this useful, please share this with your friends. Give us a rating. That will help us. Here's the quote of the week. The things that matter the least should not get in the way of the things that matter the most. That's it. That's from Darren Hardy. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening. Tell your friends. This is Dave Gallegos from Zenith Home Loans, and I'm out.
Thank you for listening to Make the Call with Dave Gallegos, brought to you by Zenith Home Loans. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the show anywhere you listen to podcasts, and share the show with a friend or colleague who would also find value.